It's 0200 hours. The sea is black. The strike group is operating under emission control. Then, radar lights up. Not with one missile track, not with a squadron of jets, but hundreds, then hundreds more. Small signatures, fast and low. A swarm. Cheap drones, launched from land, small boats, even disguised cargo vessels. Some flying high to distract radar, others skimming just above the water. Some carrying explosives, others acting as decoys. This isn't science fiction, ladies and gentlemen. We've already seen drone swarms overwhelm air defenses. We've seen loitering munitions reshape battlefields. We've seen low-cost systems damage billion-dollar equipment. Now imagine scaling that to 1,000. Right now, as tensions rise in the Middle East, the USS Gerald R is moving closer to the region. When Washington wants options on the table, this is the ship they send. Over $13 billion, 4,500 sailors, the most advanced aircraft carrier ever built. But could it survive a saturation attack of that size? What is the Gerald R? It isn't just a floating runway. It is the centerpiece of an entire carrier strike group. A moving fortress built in layers. Guided missile destroyers scanning the horizons. Cruisers packed with vertical launch cells. Attack submarines operating silently below the surface. Supply ships keeping the group alive. And above it all, combat air patrols. The carrier herself stretches more than 330 meters. That's over 1,000 feet. 2 nuclear reactors power her for decades. Electromagnetic catapults launch aircraft faster than any carrier ever before. On paper, she is overwhelming. But she is not meant to fight alone. Her real shield is distance. Enemy aircraft are intercepted hundreds of miles out. Missiles are destroyed long before they reach visual range. Threats are supposed to be handled far from the flight deck. At least that's the theory. But 1,000 small drones does change the math. They don't need to sink the ship. They don't even need to breach the hull. They just need to get through. Damage the flight deck, start fires, blind the radar, force operations to halt. And once aircraft stop launching, the carrier's greatest strength, its air wing, becomes grounded steel. So the question isn't whether the Ford is powerful, it's whether those defensive layers can hold under pressure. Because now, those radar tracks are multiplying. The first system to react isn't a gun, it's data. Out beyond the carrier, one of the destroyers in the strike group, likely an Arleigh Burke-class ship, is running the Aegis combat system. Its spy radar system is built to track ballistic missiles traveling at several times the speed of sound. But tonight, it's staring at something different. Not high, not fast, low, slow, and everywhere. The radar picture begins to clutter. Hundreds of small returns, some flying at 200 feet, some just above the wave tops. A few climbing higher, possibly acting as spotters or signal relays. But first, the system tries to classify them. Birds, civilian traffic, weather anomalies. Then the tracks stabilize. Too coordinated, too deliberate. This is a swarm. Within seconds, the data is shared across the strike group through cooperative engagement capability, meaning that every ship sees the same threat picture. The carrier's combat information center goes from quiet to controlled intensity. No panic, just speed. Airborne early warning aircraft like the E-2D Hawkeye begin adjusting their radar cones to pick up low-altitude targets the ships might struggle with due to the curvature of the Earth. Fighter jets already on patrol are vectored outward. But here's the problem. Fighter jets are excellent against aircraft, but they're not so efficient against hundreds of small drones spread across dozens of miles. You can shoot down a few with missiles, maybe strafe one with some cannon fire, But you don't burn million-dollar missiles on quadcopters unless you absolutely have to. And that's the dilemma forming in real time right here. The outer defensive ring has detected the swarm early, which is good, but detection doesn't mean neutralization. Some of these drones may be reconnaissance, others may carry small explosive payloads. A few could be decoys designed to force the fleet to waste interceptors. And even if a fraction are programmed with autonomous navigation, jamming may not even stop them. The range is closing. 50 miles, 40. The decision now shifts from tracking to shooting. Because once the first missile leaves its launch cell, there's no going back. And this is where the numbers start to matter. The first interceptors launch from the escorts, not the carrier. Vertical launch cells snap open. A guided missile destroyer fires an SM-2, then another, then another, then another. These missiles were designed to hit supersonic aircraft and anti-ship cruise missiles, each one costing millions of dollars. Each one climbs high, then dives towards its assigned target using radar guidance. Against larger drones, they work. Against hundreds of small, low-flying drones, that's where the math gets ugly. You don't fire one missile into the middle of a swarm and hope for magic. Each target requires tracking, assignment, illumination, confirmation. Some of these drones are flying just meters above the waterline, using the sea itself to mask their approach. Radar reflections blur, tracks merge. The system has to decide which ones are real threats. More missiles launch. Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles, shorter range, faster reaction, designed for maneuvering threats, better suited for smaller targets. Then, rolling airframe missiles from closer escorts. Quick, agile, built for last-moment defense. Drones begin disappearing from radar. But there's a problem that no one likes to talk about. A destroyer may carry around 90 vertical launch cells. Not all of them are loaded with anti-air missiles. Some carry anti-submarine rockets. Some carry long-range strike weapons. You cannot empty the entire magazine in the first 5 minutes. And even if you did, what happens next? The swarm keeps coming. 700 drones left, 600 left, 500. Missiles are effective, extremely effective, but they are finite. Every launch is a calculation. Is this drone carrying explosives? Is it a decoy? Is it trying to force us to waste inventory? Meanwhile, some drones begin changing altitude. Others split into smaller groups, attacking from multiple bearings. This isn't a single wave, it's layered, and now the outer ring has done its job. But the swarm isn't gone. It's thinner, closer, and moving straight toward the carrier. Now it's inside 10 miles. This is where things get loud. The carrier and her escorts shift from long-range intercepts to point defense. No more elegant arcs across the sky. This is raw reaction speed. The evolved Sea Sparrow missiles fire in quick succession from closer ships. Shorter range, faster response, built for exactly this kind of chaos. But some drones are too small, too low, too many. And that's when the last line of defense wakes up. The Phalanx CIWS, or CIWS. A white dome mounted on the deck, almost unimpressive looking, until it turns toward a target. Inside that dome is a 20mm Gatling gun that fires 4,500 rounds per minute. Radar controlled, autonomous if needed, and when it locks on, it doesn't warn, it shreds. That first drone that slips through is erased in a burst of tracers. Then another, then 3 at once. SeaRAM launchers pivot and fire rolling airframe missiles at targets too far for guns but too close for comfort. The sky around the carrier turns into a spinning wall of metal. But here is the brutal truth. Guns have range limits, a few thousand meters at most. And drones don't need to survive long, they just need to get close enough. On some US destroyers, the Helios laser system is already being tested at sea. Instead of firing a missile that costs millions, it fires energy. A focused beam that heats, burns, and disables drones almost instantly at the speed of light. No reload time, no magazine limit. As long as the ship has power, it can keep shooting. And a nuclear-powered carrier has plenty of power. Lasers struggle in bad weather, heavy rain, fog, dust, but in clear conditions they are perfect against small drones. They don't explode them dramatically, they just simply burn sensors or burn through control surfaces until the drone drops. A carrier strike group is incredibly powerful, but it's not infinite. Missiles don't reload at sea. Once a vertical launch cell is empty, it stays empty until port. Every SM-2 fired, every ESSM launched, every rolling airframe missile used, inventory gone. Now, imagine the swarm wasn't the main attack. What if 1,000 drones was just phase 1? What if anti-ship cruise missiles followed 30 minutes later, timed perfectly after the magazines are depleted? That's modern saturation strategy. It's not about defeating technology, it's about exhausting capacity. Radar has tracking limits, fire control has engagement limits, guns overheat, crews fatigue. Lasers reduce cost, but they still need time on target, stable air, and clear lines of sight. So, could the Ford survive 1,000 drones? Possibly. Could it survive repeated saturation waves without resupply? That's the harder question. Because in modern naval warfare, endurance may matter more than firepower. And the first wave tests systems. The second wave tests survival. And if 1,000 drones attacked the USS Gerald R Ford tonight, would she survive? In a single, isolated wave? Most likely, yes. The strike group was built for layered defense. Long-range intercepts, mid-range missiles, electronic warfare, point defense guns, emerging lasers, redundant systems, trained crews, decades of doctrine behind every decision. But survival is not the same as immunity. Flight operations might pause, sections of the deck could shut down, interceptor inventories would shrink, damage control teams would be pushed to their limits, and the psychological strain of watching hundreds of threats close in would be very real. Now, imagine that was only phase 1. A second wave, time to arrive as magazines run low, anti-ship missiles mixed into the radar clutter, submarines exploiting the distraction. That is where endurance becomes decisive. The Ford is not fragile, but she is not invincible either. Modern naval warfare is shifting, not toward a single unstoppable weapon, but towards scalable, repeatable pressure, mass-produced autonomy, algorithms against algorithms, logistics against logistics. In that world, victory doesn't belong to the side with the most advanced ship. It belongs to the side that manages capacity, can adapt the fastest, and sustains the fight the longest. And that raises the real strategic question. What happens when both sides bring 1,000 drones to the battlefield? What do you think? Could a carrier strike group truly withstand 1,000 coordinated drones? Or is the era of the supercarrier slowly being reshaped by cheaper, autonomous technology? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. At Military Legends, we don't just look at hardware, we look at the people, the strategies, and the realities behind it. Let's keep telling these stories from the sea and keep honoring the men and women who live and serve aboard ships around the world. If you value thoughtful, in-depth military analysis just like this one, consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. and I'll see you in the next one.